Now, our quilt group have produced some magnificent quilts, which we've sometimes seen in the pavilion on display, but they've produced them during lockdown as well, which has been quite an achievement by Claire, the group organizer, and all the members of her group. Claire's got a big post box, and the members have delivered their sections of the quilt to her post box. Claire's put them together, so they've managed to produce quilts during lockdown, which I think is a real achievement, and they've raised thousands for charity. So thank you, Claire. Brilliant. That looks great.
Great. Okay, so to start with, we're a quilt group running at Exmouth u3a. We have 12 members when we're completely full up. And during lockdown, of course, we didn't meet at all. And we devised a way of keeping together. We ran Zoom sessions to keep in touch with each other. And during the middle of the first lockdown, we decided that we'd make a quilt to keep us, or some quilts to keep us busy. In fact, we've made 6 quilts during lockdown, and you'll get to see little bits of them as this presentation progresses. Just to hark back, we started making quilts for charity when the Grenville Tower disaster happened, and I had worked up at Grenville Towers. And we decided to donate 12 quilts to a scheme to allow families to start regaining some possessions that they'd lost in the fire. And that kind of whetted our appetite for doing quilts for charity. First slide, please. This quilt we had started before lockdown, but it needed finishing. All quilts need most quilts need 3 layers to them, and we've done the top layer. But we needed to do more work on the middle layer and the back layer. So this was finished during quilting, during the lockdown times. It's a shirt quilt. We were donated a bag of men's shirts by one of the u3a members. And we always put a little quirk on our quilts. And as you can see, we decided to put a kind of shirt and tie feature in the middle of it. Members made individual squares, and then groups of us collected together to decide on the layout of the squares and then get them sewn together. Next slide, please. And that's the quilt laid out in the garden. I think it's important to note here that we make quilts out of all sorts of material, and we get donated a fair bit. In fact, I came back the other day from a shopping trip to find a bag on my doorstep of really exciting material, which we'll add into future quilts. But we try and keep the cost down by sourcing material from our own resources and accepting donations from some of the fabric shops, which I'll tell you about a bit later. The quilts we make can be hand sewn or machine sewn because people have a preference for that. And this quilt, some of the squares were sewn by hand and some of them were sewn by machine. So I choose patterns that can be either machine or hand sewn. And then we try and unify the colours to bring the quilt together. Next slide, please. One of our members had a bereavement and we decided to make her a keepsake quilt. So this is a similar idea to the previous one, but a completely different pattern. So we've used her husband's shirts to design a quilt that they can make. This photograph makes me laugh because we've all got really long hair, so you can tell that it was done during lockdown. I'm not sure you'd recognise all of us now with how much shorter hair, but this is 4 of our members. And Jenny in the corner there is holding up an iPad because, in fact, the other members were zooming in because we had limited numbers that we could have in the garden. So we set up a Zoom session in the garden as well for the members that couldn't be present at the photograph taking. Next slide, please. Ideas come from loads of different places, and I saw this quilt on the web and thought, oh yeah, we could make a quilt like that. The thing to notice is that there's a common black background theme and the bookshelves are all the same colours, but apart from that, everything else is unique. So I made a pattern up for the members and gave them some background material and some bookshelf material and let them play with it. Next slide, please. So this was the first piece of material that came back, and that gave us an idea of the books. And if you'll notice, the books are all lined up, and then on the right hand side there's a big empty gap. And I said to the group, put what you like in that gap, be creative. Well, I had no idea how creative my group could be, because if you see the next slide, please. As the quilts came, as the rectangles came back, so came back lots of great ideas. So at the very top of the page, there's a cat. On the second row there, you can see a spider's web beginning to emerge, and a bunch of wool with knitting needles. And on the row below, there's some jam and a jug, all sorts of things. So you could see people were adding to it the things that they wanted to. And again, these were either hand or machine sewn. And this was just laying them out on the floor to get some idea of what the quilt might look like. Next slide, please. This is the finished quilt. It's fairly big. There's been lots more things added to it. We now have a mouse on row 3 looking up at the cat. We have a candle on the bottom row there. And we've added book titles to some of the books. Some of these are made up of our own names, with others are the selvage edges of the material that we use to in our collections at home. And there's a plate on the top row. So it allows people to be creative. We've been really lucky because we offered to donate this quilt to the Exmouth Library, which they gratefully accepted. They were saying how difficult it is for them to raise funds for things that for everyday things that they need. And I've had an email this morning to say that a press release is going out this week. It's the group of libraries, the East Devon libraries, that are going to take the quilt, and they're going to exhibit it 1 month over in each library, and they have 12 libraries. So in a year's time, it will be raffled off. And hopefully a book lover will get the quilt and really enjoy it. This, though, is only the top layer. Next slide, please. Because we also did the back of the quilt. And we kind of thought long and hard about what we should put on the back. And I had a little rectangle of material, which you can see in the bottom of the screen there. And we decided that if we put that on and added some material around it, it would make an effective back. So basically this quilt is double-sided, and it's still in the theme of books and learning, which is lovely. Yeah, it's a really interesting quilt. So we added a middle layer to it, and we've sandwiched them together. And the quilt is now with the library service, and you might see it in the local paper or your local library. Raffle tickets will be on sale online and in person, depending which library you're in. So we're really excited about that, because it's been such a lovely project to do during lockdown. Christine was saying that I had a big letterbox. In fact, I have a big box outside my front door with a big weight on it, so that the wind can't blow it away or water can't get in. And members drop off things, and I put in things for them and send them a text and say, there's something in the box for you, and the group come and pick it up. Next slide, please. This is a quilt. I said at the beginning that we'd been donated material. We were donated some material from Cowslip, who knew that we made quilts for charity, and they gave us 4 bales of material, including all these colours here, and we made this split star quilt and finished that off during lockdown. So it's a really nice design. And again, members were able to take a big square each and do that. So that was good. Next slide, please. This is our fan quilt. We really like this quilt. We went to an exhibition in Bath of the American Museum of Cave Facet quilts. And this is one of his designs. And we've modernized it by keeping it bright and light. And again, I supplied the background material and the pattern to people. And this one is yet to be finished. This is only the top layer. We've just sewn the 3 layers together. As soon as lockdown had finished, we sat in the garden and sewed the 3 layers together, and hopefully it'll go out to a charity in the next couple of weeks. But it's a really nice design, and everyone put their own stamp on it by choosing coordinating fabric to the design that was set. And next slide, please. This is our this is another quilt that we made during lockdown, and we started off with the boat in the middle. We thought they were really nice, and they were kind of very friendly to use. And then once we'd made up the middle, we realized that in fact we want the quilt to be a bit bigger. So we've added seagulls. If you can see, there's 2 seagulls standing at the top of the quilt and at the bottom of the quilt. There's whales at the top of the quilts, 2 of them. And then there's lighthouses, compasses, and life belts. So yes, we've kind of gone to town with that theme. You'll notice that Dee there is holding a bag. All of our quilts come with a bag. So we make a bag for each quilt so that as we give it away in a coordinating theme. This quilt has been donated to, or will be donated to, the Sea Scouts. We've yet to make a date to agree the when and the how, but they have said that they would love to have it and to raffle it off for one of their good causes. So yeah, and it's lovely making things about living by the sea. You know, we kind of, it helps our imagination amazingly. The last slide, please. This is our current one. We so enjoyed doing a seasidey theme, we thought we'd do a bit more. So we have this little fish. It will become a big double-sized quilt, and members are currently making those. I get lovely little surprises every time I go home and I open the box and there's another little packet from one of the members. You'll notice that there's 2 designs. There's the stripy one, and then there's the fish, and we're going to put it together and make a fishy quilt. We haven't got a home for this yet. We'll decide nearer the time when it's finished who we will donate it to. But I found the pattern for the fish on YouTube, and again, it's where we get our lots of our ideas from, just looking around at what's around. So it's a very healthy little group. It's not just about the sewing, as we found out during lockdown, because we couldn't sit and sew together. It's very much about how we support each other as friends and as colleagues, and put the world to rights on our Zoom sessions, and then go away and sew. So yes, it's a very lovely little group. I think that's it, Christine.
A lovely presentation, Claire, and what an achievement. And no UFOs, unfinished objects, which I've got loads of. You get your items finished, which is a real achievement. I just love that library one. That's absolutely superb, with all those embellishments, the cat and the spider's web and the candle and the books leaning over. And also that you've done it double-sided so that they've got the background as well. I mean, I think that's just absolutely fabulous. And all the thousands that you've raised for charities locally and also previously for Grenville Towers, which is just fantastic that you'd given all those quilts to the 12 families of Grenville Tower. I think that's absolutely amazing. It just highlights how much talent and the different talent that we've got within our U3A. Just fantastic.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.